Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Real Time with Prince Blue, and happy Easter to everybody. It is April the 4th. I hope everybody's being safe and having a fantastic Easter Sunday. I'm a little bit earlier than normal. That's because my special guest is living in the land of sunshine and she's behind on the time. So I had to do a show a little bit early today, but um, this show is going to be very, very good because I saw her post, and then it was a great post about the Sixers. She was all Sixered up, fired up about the Sixers, and then I saw that she has a very interesting job, and I was like, if why not? Why not reach out to her and see if she wants to come on? And she was fair game for it. And you know, in this show, I always push to have people from all walks of life on the show to discuss not only sports and entertainment, but also what they're doing within the community and in their own bubble, whatever it is that they're doing. And I'm welcome to bring with you today to the show Dr. Sheila Madrack. And she grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia where her parents still live. She's moved to San Diego for grad school 12 years ago and is now a biology professor for a local community college. When she isn't obsessing over the Sixers and Eagles, she loves being outside, hanging with her 11-year-old mentee, or binging the latest and greatest on TV. We're definitely going to get into that because during the pandemic, it's all about what can I binge watch. So, without further ado, let me introduce to you Dr. Madrack. Hello.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is so cool.
Oh, this is no, thank you for coming on. I mean, who else could say they have let me get it right, an ecologist on their show? Who else? Besides like Discovery Channel or
Yeah,
something
that's
like
true.
that. So you're a Philadelphia native and you moved out to San Diego. Um, First of all, tell me how hard was it to move from Philadelphia? That could be a rhetorical question too, but go ahead.
Well, and as I will say, as my dad always reminds me, I'm from the Philadelphia suburbs. He's from Philadelphia. So
Oh, come on, Dad.
I know, but he's from Southwest, so I grew up in the suburbs, but I actually left when I first went away to college. So I went to college in Vermont. And
Mhm.
then I moved to Florida for my master's degree. Then I lived in northern Arizona for 2 years, which, it was fine. But then I moved to San Diego for my PhD and I've stayed here. So I've carried my Philadelphia sports fanaticism with me to all of those places.
So when you say Philadelphia sports fanaticism, people don't understand. Like fanatic, it pretty much originated in Philly because that's what we are. We're fanatical about our teams,
Mhm.
and what what got my attention with you was the Sixers were playing, and you was just it was like your timeline was constant Sixers, and I was like, who is this with all this Sixer tweets? And then I looked and I was like, oh wow. So tell me, how did your love for the Sixers start?
I mean, I like everybody from Philadelphia and the surrounding area, right? Like you're just raised with it. So, since I was little, my dad was always really big into all the teams and just brought my sister and I into the fold on that. My mom is a nurse and would work on the weekends. So on the weekends it was just us with our dad, and if there was a game on, we were watching it and we knew like you only talk during the commercials, otherwise you're watching the game. And so he would take us to games, and yeah, especially Sixers. I remember a lot going to games with my dad, and it was just always so much fun, and I loved it. I mean, that was like the late Charles Barkley years, and Manute Bol was on the team, and
Oh,
I remember even like when Charles got traded to the Suns, how devastated I was because I thought he was like ours, like you don't understand
mhm.
how trades work and stuff when you're a kid. So you're like, no, how could he do this to us? So yeah. just, I mean, like everybody in the area, I feel like we just grow up with it. And you don't just switch teams when you move to a new area. I feel like, plus I'm in San Diego, we only have the Padres now, so it wouldn't really be much fun.
That yeah, and that's the thing. When you go from somewhere that's so fanatical and so with sports ingrained in the culture of Philadelphia, then you settle somewhere in San Diego where, it's a baseball team, but it was the Chargers, but after that, it's not as pronounced as there. Like, how do people get that? Like when you're wearing a Sixers hoodie or an Eagles hoodie, or like how's the approach there?
Well, it's kind of interesting, I think, because San Diego tends to be such a mix of people from other areas. There's like we're in the neighborhood that I live in, there's a Philadelphia sports bar down the street that the guys from Philly, and they serve soft pretzels, and like even like their water thing is labeled water. And so, there's like that everywhere. And so I've got a Sixers flag on my house. My neighbors have their Lakers flag. The other neighbors have like their Titans flag. And so, it's everybody. So it's kind of
Mhm.
fun like that. I will say, I don't know if it's because I'm looking for it, but I always see more Philly stuff than anything else.
So you try to like it. I guess in your words, when it's a hodgepodge, it's great because you get to, when you're in Philly, it's only really one fandom.
Right.
So you don't have to flex on others. But when you're like somewhere like San Diego, you could be like Super Bowl champions, baby. What
Yeah.
have you done?
Yeah.
Or
Oh,
right.
yeah. Totally. I mean, yeah, that's what I usually have. It's either my Eagles flag or my Sixers flag up. But, I will say I did take the Eagles flag down pretty early last year.
And we're going to get into that because
Yeah.
we were talking offline and you were not a fan of Carson Wentz, and that was shocking to me because it just seemed like people just kept making excuses for the guy. But can you give us your take on Carson Wentz and where were your issues with him for his time in Philly?
Well, I kind of felt like, and we were talking, like you said, we were talking off air, but I kind of felt like people made him a star before he had really proved himself to us. And as Philly sports people, you have to earn our love, And so I felt like that it was decided he was going to be this star. And then when he started off a couple, the 2 seasons early on that he played really well and then got injured, people were like, well, he can do it. He can do it. And it's like, oh, well, he got injured. So maybe. And, then the year we won the Super Bowl, I know everybody likes to say, well, Carson got us there. Carson didn't get us there. In my opinion, Nick Foles and the rest of the team got us there. So I just always felt like he was given a lot more credit than he had earned. So last year, when it just felt like, and like you had said, there was no accountability for the team. And he's the quarterback. And if you're going to be the quarterback and the supposed star of the team, you got to earn that and show leadership. And it just wasn't there. And it was just so hard to watch. And so, like, by week 4, I was done with the season.
And you're not the only one that was done um early, and I don't fault anybody. Like I wasn't like, oh, how can you give up? I don't consider it giving up. I consider it your leader of the football team was somebody that you didn't particularly care for, and the brand of football he playing was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
The team was terrible, and your leader wasn't taking any accountability. So it's like the definition of insanity. It's like
Mm-hmm.
why? But Philly fans, we're sadomasochists. We like feeling pain, so we'll look and we'll be like, I already know they're about to blow it, but
Yeah.
then you're like, well, why are you watching?
Yeah, but but that's the thing, I'm 38. I've spent plenty of seasons watching them when they're terrible and still loving it and getting excited when they win, just a handful of games. But it was just, I felt like it was unbearable to watch last year. And
Hmm.
it was just beyond. And it probably was a lot of that, like the off the field kind of stuff of not just saying, yeah, you know what, I'm not playing well. If he had said that, I think he would have had a lot more respect from a lot of people. But I don't know. I don't think he was ever a good fit for the city.
Mm-hmm.
And he's from North Dakota, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't want to get the wrong Dakota, but I think like he just, I don't know. There's people that come to Philadelphia, they do really well and we embrace them. There's people that come to Philadelphia and they just never kind of click with the city.
But there's also people that come to Philadelphia, do well, and don't click. And it's people
Yeah.
that don't do well and click, like your
Yeah.
TJ
You're right. You're right.
McConnells, your scrappy go get 'em guys.
But we love
So
those guys. We love guys like TJ who
yeah.
just come in and because he came in and he did his job. And
Mm-hmm.
like that was always the thing. That was kind of the mentality that I grew up with from my dad watching sports with him was like these guys are getting paid millions of dollars to do this for their job. And if you're not doing your job, you should get fired or at least get a reprimand. But it's like if any of us, like you're a retired police officer, if you went to work and didn't do your job, you're not gonna get, you're not gonna be doing well in your career. And same for me. So it should be the same for these guys, and they make a lot more money than us.
Right. And you know what I found out is weird is it's like because it's like we get it. They're human. Like, listen, people,
Yeah,
we get it. They're human. But if I could be a human making so much damn money, and you're
right.
telling me that some guy on Twitter, bigger than me or slower than me, is giving me BS, and all I can fire off is, bruh, check the paycheck. Why am I miserable? Why am I miserable? I
Yeah,
don't, but I guess, man, because people be like, money don't buy you happiness. Well, it's a hell of a down payment. I can tell you that
yeah,
because
that's right.
you telling me all I have to do is practice, then play football, or practice and then shoot a basketball, or
Right,
practice and then hit a baseball. Oh, yeah, and by the way, set my family and generations up for many years.
right, right.
Unless I'm in some terrible city where it's like totally unbearable. Like if I'm like
Yeah,
in Standback, Alabama, and it's like I can't do it.
yeah.
Okay, I may have a little bit of sympathy for you, but no.
Well, yeah, and
All
it's
this,
like
go ahead.
that's that. But with Carson, it was just like just be accountable. We'll have a lot more respect for you if you just own it. And that, yeah, I know, I totally agree. Like they're people, they have feelings, and but like who's a great example is Tobias because Tobias on the Sixers, Tobias Harris, he got so much crap over the last like before this season, but like last year and the year before, and especially when he got the contract, people were just like, oh, he doesn't deserve it. And look how he's playing and blah, 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 blah. And I just felt like, I don't know. I see sparks of it. I feel like, and he never once came out and said, I'm this huge star and I deserve all this money. He's such a humble guy. And then when he came out this year and he's just been phenomenal, like all year. I mean, we won last night because of him. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, that's the kind of guy that we love. He took
Mm-hmm.
it for a whole year from all of us complaining, and he came back and he said, you know what, they're probably a little bit right, and I'm going to play harder and I'm going to show them. And then we all had his
Yeah.
back when he got snubbed for the All-Star.
No, woe is me. No,
Yeah.
well, there's nothing wrong with my game. I'm going to keep playing the way I play. Like
Mm-hmm.
all that crap that Carson would
Right.
do. Tobias didn't do that. He was actually the antithesis of that.
Yeah.
He got better, did better, even took some lumps along the road. Still got some crap. Still get some crap. But what does he do? He comes out, puts his head down. He just keeps playing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's like, well, I mean, he has the perfect role model in Joel for that because Joel really gets us. I mean, there's so few athletes that have come to Philadelphia and just are like a Joel or a Brian Dawkins or, these
An
guys that,
AI.
Yeah, and of course. And I know I'm wearing my Bubba Chuck hoodie.
Look at that.
But yeah, that they just get us and they take it and they dish it out, and it's like we're all in this together, kind of.
And you know what? To the people on the outside who think Philly fans, they always get their players a hard time. Nobody wants to play there. No, there's been players that love playing here, love when we give them the business, and they give it back to us, and we don't get mad at them.
Right.
We be like when athletes clap back at the fans. I'm not one of those that be like, you should never go at the fans. You're not going to win. No, you're human. If a fan is getting on your nerves, you let them know. But what I don't like is when they're like passive aggressive, like a Donovan was, or
Oh
like
yeah.
Durant is making burner accounts and
Yeah.
and talking like the whole new athlete, like the way they're so passive aggressive about things, like I don't like that. Like, tell us how you feel. Like,
Yeah.
let us know. Like, look, I'm out here doing what I got to do, to doing the best I can to bring a championship here. Like, if you got a problem with that, that's fine. But never question my effort. Never question my desire to win here. I got no issues with that.
Yeah, me
None.
neither. Oh, sorry, my dog's
No,
down here.
it is all right. He was getting fired up too.
Yeah.
So speaking of career, because when you say your job, if you don't do well in your job, that you people will fire you or whatever the case may be. You're an ecologist.
Hmm.
For the people out there that don't know, explain what an ecologist. First of all, anything that ends in the is required a lot of schooling
Yeah.
and a lot of money and resources to get it done. So explain what that is.
So, well, first of all, let me say that because this is for anybody that's thinking about like grad school in the sciences, you can get teaching assistantships and research assistantships that help with your tuition and expenses. So, it wasn't as much money as it probably would seem like it would be, because you kind of get paid to do. I mean, you teach. You're a TA, so you help teach a lab or something, but as an ecologist, ecology is basically like a sub-discipline of biology. So biology is the study of life, and then ecology is the study of life and the environment. So basically taking into account of how temperature or pH or precipitation, all those kinds of things affect living organisms.
So you study like the way, let's say, a oil spill affects the otters. Am
Yeah,
I off?
no. That would be a good example. I don't study otters, but I studied turtles actually mostly of my career. So
Like
I've
Ninja
studied,
Turtles?
yeah, more or less. I studied sea turtles during my master's degree and my PhD. And then I've also done quite a bit of work with desert tortoises. So, like, to kind of parallel your example of the oil spill and the otters, one of the projects that I worked on in San Diego for my PhD was with sea turtles and a power plant that pumped out warm water. So,
Ooh.
how were the turtles affected by the warm water that was pumped out? So, or like I've worked on a project out in the Palm Springs area with desert tortoises and wind turbines. So, like, how do the desert tortoises navigate all these man-made structures in their habitat? So, yeah, but your example was right on.
So you said you study turtles. So
Mhm.
how does that work? Like how like you say, like if somebody you used to explain to somebody like I studied turtles. So we're picture like what does that mean? Because I know you have one picture where you're next to a huge turtle.
That's my tortoise, Petunia. She's out in my backyard. But yeah, I mean, are you asking how you get into it?
Yes, like I'm sitting here and I'm like, you know what? I want to study turtles.
Oh yeah, okay. So, well, for me, I mean, it's funny you reference the Ninja Turtles because as a kid from the 80s and 90s, I loved the Ninja Turtles as a kid. And I was a Raphael person, just to get that out of the way.
Of
But
course you like the rebel.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I remember getting really into the cartoon and like running home from school and putting it on and then begging my parents relentlessly to buy me a pet turtle. And they eventually did cave. And we went to the pet store, which this was a long time ago. There was a pet store in the King of Prussia Mall. And we went to the pet store and I picked out a little box turtle. Of course, he was named Raphael. And that just started it for me. And then I just always really liked, I've always liked animals in general, but I really always liked turtles from that moment on. So when I went to college though, neither one of my parents had graduated from a 4-year university. And so, being the first in your family to go to 4-year college, it's tough when you don't have people that have navigated that before you. And so, you're like, well, I want to study turtles. And my parents are like, no, that's not a career. So they were like, why don't you go to veterinary school? So that's kind of where I started. But then I just had really awesome mentors that were like, well, if you really like turtles, you can study turtles. And so it's really just like, that's then what my master's and my PhD was. You just kind of immerse yourself in all of the existing research and then figure out what are the questions that aren't answered yet.
That is so awesome because it's like, people get into different things and have different passions. And we all know with everything that's going on, the environment, it needs more attention than ever. And we need to find out why things are happening the way they are. But now it's like it's like when somebody be like, hey, what did you do for a living, or what do you do for a living? And once I tell them, they either got a lot of questions, they
Mm-hmm.
got a lot of hate, or they got a lot of like, what when you say I do this, do you get that person that's like, well, what do you think about the way that such and such is happening and such and
Yeah.
such? And you're like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yes, and that is such an insightful point because that is something that used to happen all the time. And probably when I was younger, I liked it. It was exciting, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm in grad school studying sea turtles," and people are like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool." A lot of the response when I would be studying sea turtles would be like, "Oh, I swam with them in Florida or Hawaii," and or like, "How long do they really live?" And so it's kind of the same things. Oh, I loved Finding Nemo. I'm like, I know, yeah, it's a great movie. but I have as you move into in any career, you start to get more and more into it. And you start to feel like that imposter syndrome where you learn
Mm-hmm.
more and more, but yet you feel like, well, I still don't know all of this. So I kind of would just say like, oh, I'm an ecologist. And then like people don't know a lot of the time. So they don't ask either
Mm-hmm.
because no one wants
Oh,
to do it. Yeah. Like, oh, okay. And then it's like, that's over. So that's kind of how it is now.
that's so great. So, um, you're a huge you're a huge lover of turtles. Give
Mhm.
me give me the most exotic place you've been that your career has afforded you to be at.
I've really spent most of my career studying turtles in the United States. So,
Mm-hmm.
grad school has taken me to live in different places within the United States. I've really not gone anywhere too exotic to study turtles.
Do you have a wish list?
Um, I used to say I always wanted to go to the Galapagos, and I still want to go to the Galapagos. I don't know why I'm saying used to, but it's like travel seems so foreign right now because of COVID, but I'd still love to go to the Galapagos. I've been to, let's see, I've been to a couple places in the Caribbean, like the Cayman Islands and St. John, and there's turtles there, but like those were vacations. It wasn't, to do work. It's cool because when I went to grad school in Florida, I worked with baby turtles, so hatchlings, and there's 3 species that nest in Florida. So it was like I could just drive a mile to the beach and there's my baby turtles that I needed to do my work. And then in San Diego, we have green sea turtles that live in the water in San Diego Bay. So that was, they're like my neighbors instead of going somewhere exotic.
Now you said you do have a yeah, my wife says that's funny. They were just talking about the Galapagos on Schitt's Creek.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
that's right.
that's
They
where
did.
they're
Yeah,
going.
that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, that's where they're about to go, and they
Yeah.
have to get all these like
And I think he was going to
vaccinations
study
and
the
stuff.
turtles too, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's going. That is so odd. Yep, yep. That sure
Yeah.
enough, they're on their way. Yep. That last episode we was watching, Ted is leaving out,
Ted,
and then
that's right.
Alexis is going to follow him in about a week. So that's pretty cool. So when you said you actually the picture of you with the big turtle, that's your personal turtle.
Yeah, she is a desert tortoise, which they
Hmm.
live in California. But once they're in, and they're actually an endangered species in California,
Okay.
but once they've been brought into captivity, they can't be re released because it risks spreading disease to the wild populations.
Oh.
So, like, because being someone that studies turtles isn't really that commonplace, like when I was in grad school a lot, it would be a friend of a friend being like, "Oh, I have this friend who found this turtle. What are they supposed to do with it?" Like, I'll take it. So, this was a kind of situation like that. It was a friend of a friend who had it, didn't even know what species it was, and he had bigger tortoises that were kind of picking on her. And so I took her, but she's now permitted, like she has a permit in this with the state of California to be living in my yard.
So wait a minute, she was being bullied, got adopted.
Yeah.
So were they like mad at her because they was like, "You ain't from around here, you from the streets."
Kind of, yeah. Yeah.
So turtles are territorial like that? Is that what you're
Yeah.
trying to tell me?
Turtles are actually
Oh.
very territorial. Even sea turtles they'll like protect their little patch of eelgrass. They're like, this is my
Hmm.
food, back off.
Oh, that is crazy. Let me find out turtles are bullies to their own kind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they were different species though. So,
Oh, oh, so it was kind of a racial thing between tortoises. It was like so.
well, yeah, but I mean, like we're all one species. We're all humans. These are
Hmm.
different species. So it would be more like a dog and a coyote like getting
Oh, okay,
into
I got you. I got you. I got you. I
it.
got you.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're a huge Sixers fan.
Yep.
Um, what has been the best part about this year so far?
It's got to be the chemistry of the team. They are just so much fun this year. And I think it probably feels more fun maybe than it is sometimes just because last year was in the bubble was so blah.
Mhm.
They were so boring to watch. And there wasn't, you can see that there was no on court or off court chemistry really, other than like, Matisse's little vlog that we all got a peek into. But even that, everybody just was kind of like, hey. But this year, they just look like they're having so much fun, and that's coming across. I think Dwight has been so much fun to have on the team. I didn't know what to expect from Dwight when him coming into the team, especially as like the veteran of all the vets on our squad. And he's like, I mean, the man went and got his Frosty and French fries after the Frosty freeze out one time.
He
He's
could
just
buy Wendy's. He went and got his
I
free
know,
frosty.
but he did. But that's so great. Like that's the kind of stuff we love. And they're just like Ben and Joel's relationship you can tell, has gotten so much better. I think Ben plays better when Joel's around.
No question. And I tweeted about that, and I'm glad that people didn't take it as a slight, but I was just saying that Joel is an alpha, which means
Yeah.
whether he's when he's there, he's going to play, and if Ben is missing, Joel's going to pick it up. Versus when Joel is missing, Ben is still dependent on everybody else around him more than taking it over. So I said, this is clearly that Ben needs Joel,
Mm-hmm.
more than Joel needs Ben. And that's not,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that to pull them apart. It's just one person can do anything he wants on the court, no matter what defense you throw at him, versus Ben.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to do but so much, and he's so dependent on the people around him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's such a great observation. And people love to hate on Ben. And I don't really hate on Ben because I just feel like Ben does something that's different than a lot of players in the NBA right now. And everybody's so obsessed with threes. And I kind of love that our squad has this totally different dynamic where we're not dependent on the three. It's nice when Seth is hitting them or Danny's hitting them, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like Ben has such a place on our team, but he just for whatever reason plays better when Joel's out there too.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah.
Because I yes, the threes are fun, but I ain't gonna lie to you. I love when the other team thinks they're getting a run, and then we toss it into Joel, and he gets hacked or he bullies them. I mean, he demoralizes centers and he demoralizes teams because it's like we threw three people at him. He either got the and one, got fouled, or kicked it out and got an open three. It's like
Yeah.
what else can we do besides when he's sitting down try to make our run?
Yeah. I don't remember who it was, but it was in the few weeks where Joel was out with the knee injury. And somebody in one of the post games from the team had said that, like, when Joel just comes down, you can see the fear on the defenders' faces because he's like a freight train coming. I mean, it was funny. I always text back and
Go ahead.
forth with my dad during the games.
Mm-hmm.
And last night I was joking because he fell down. He was on the court 7 or 8 different times. He's just like barrels in.
He's such a klutz. He's the most athletic klutz I think I've ever seen. Like how
Yes.
like even I'm glad everything turned out fine, but when he dunked and hurt his knee, I was like,
Yes.
Joel, I was like, what Russell Westbrook doesn't even come down on one leg like that. Like, what are you doing, big fella? And if you
I
look at
know.
it, that dunk was nice. This guy is 7 feet. And
He's
but
enormous.
when he came down like that, I was like, Joe, what are you doing? But that's what we love. He's making as much money as anybody. He knows how important he is to this franchise. He's on the ground. He's diving.
I
He's, I
know.
mean, we're like, no. But then we're like, okay, Joe, thank you. But we're still like, no. We're like, come on. Like, Matisse can't dive or something. Somebody else dive before Joe. If I'm I'm like, if it's a ball on the ground and y'all let Joe dive, I'm fining you $5,000. Like, I don't need my big man barreling on the floor like that.
I know. I could not agree with you more. I love the description of him being an athletic klutz because
He's
that is
an
like
athletic
so
klutz.
apt. My dad's my Sixers buddy since I was a kid. So every game we're like texting back and forth. And he always says that Joel just doesn't know how to control his body. Like he's just like all over the place.
He's an athletic klutz. Like
Yeah.
he will come down, do a Euro step, or he hit that step back three that
Yeah.
guards can't even do.
I
And then
know.
he'll trip over his own feet. And
I
then you're like,
know. Yeah. It's so I'm like while you were talking about him landing on that leg, I can still picture it and like his knee hyperextended and like everybody. I don't know if you saw him on the post game last night, but he was saying that he was crying, which I love our Joel. He cries all the time, but
such a
he
crier.
I love it. But he said he was crying and he thought that the season was over. And I think all of us thought so too. It was like there was a couple days there where we didn't know what the injury was.
You had people tweeting, take my ACL, Lord, take my you know, a guy has captured the city when you're offering up your ACL to Lord,
I know.
take mine. Well, the Lord
Honestly,
must have took somebody's because his was just a
yeah.
hyperextension. So
Oh, I know.
man, and we play tonight. We
Yep.
got Memphis tonight. Of course,
Yep.
Joel's not playing. It was already
Right.
said that this is part of
His
their plan for him to
recovery.
be cautious with him on back to backs.
Yeah.
Now, let's get into this. Why are people so hell bent on just putting the Nets in the finals? It's just skipping over the team that's been in first place since the beginning of the damn season. Why is that?
I think it's the same thing with the threes, right? Like the people love a name. And that was somebody tweeted in the last few days of like after the trade deadline of people scooping up different players and like just name grabbing essentially. But yeah, I don't know. It feels like the Sixers always get overlooked. It feels like we're always like, oh, it's New York and Philly. Oh, well, let's go with New York. But I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, they have a ton of names, but we've only come out of first place once, right? Since the
That was
All-Star
just
break.
this week, and it's like
Right,
point five.
right. And so I don't understand it. I'm looking forward to us being the Eastern Conference champions. And we can, we'll just be very pleasant with the Nets people that didn't get their team in.
You know what I think it is? It's because in a league now that's dominated by guard play and
Yeah.
wings, our superstar is a big man.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's not aesthetically pleasing. I don't know why, because Joel's beautiful playing basketball,
Yeah.
but people are so hung. Oh, he's not pulling up from the logo. Blah 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 blah. But our game is like we're actually doing bully ball. Even
Yeah.
with Ben, Ben's a 6'10"
Right.
bully, pretty much. Like he's barreling into the lane.
I
I
know.
guarantee you, if Ben was jacking up threes, we would definitely be over. We would be picked over the Nets because people would
Yeah.
be like, "Oh, that's exciting basketball! Oh my
Yeah.
God, Ben's averaging 25, 10, and 13 or whatever the case may be. He's
Yeah.
jacking up threes from the logo. He's shooting 30%, but he's shooting from the logo. But since our big man is the superstar, we're looked at as caveman basketball.
Right. That's good. But yeah, I know. And that conversation about Ben and the three, it's like, oh, I'm so thankful for Doc because he has just in the post games just shut the reporters down every week. Like, I'm tired of answering this question. I don't care if he doesn't shoot a three. And I've always felt that way about Ben. I mean, I remember like everybody else when he finally hit the three for the first time in a game. And it was like the shot heard round the world. But he has so many assets that he brings to the table, and our team is a big team in general. Most of our guards are pretty tall too. It's like I like, we're like the Flyers were back in the day, the Broad Street Bullies. We're playing bully ball. That's so Philadelphia, and it's perfect for us.
And I love it. And listen, it's W's. We're in
Yeah,
first place, people. Stop talking like we're battling for an eighth seed. We're in first place.
right.
Well, we're tied
We're
for first
tied.
place right
Yeah.
now. And oh yeah, by the way, when people thought it was over with Joel out, we went. What did we go in total? 8-3 without him, or something like that.
Something like that. I know the road trip was 4-2,
Yeah,
right?
I think we
Yeah.
went 8-3.
Yeah. I know. I will say, I know like a lot of people after we got rid of Tony Bradley, it was like, I really did like Tony Bradley. I thought he was somebody we could have held on to because he was one of those people that the city just embraces where he comes out of nowhere. He's been riding the bench all year, had maybe played like collectively 20 minutes up until that point, and then come in and do your job. And it was awesome. And, I wish him well, but we can't have a whole team of centers, I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, Dwight's an elite hacker.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the computer. Like he's like, dude,
Yeah.
he's funny, but you could tell it's like the refs are like looking for it now. Some
Oh,
of the stuff
yeah.
he does is completely stupid. I'm like, Dwight, like when he got kicked out against
And
Montreal,
then in the next game, too, it was like,
you can see him. Like I saw it. Like the moment the timeout happened, I was like, Dwight, where you going? Where you going? Where you going? Boom! He pushed him. I said, "Oh, Dwight, why?" And that was
right.
perfect. Clowns.
Yeah.
I didn't like
Clowns.
it.
I
Clowns.
know.
And
I
the
know.
fact he coached both of them, that was beautiful.
Yeah, it's
Like,
great. Doc is great. I mean, so many great changes, and we have to, of course, appreciate Daryl Morey for a lot of that. But it's like they're just such a fun squad. I would like to see some more B-ball Paul minutes, but I was kind
hmm
of hoping for some last night because it seemed like we should be beating, the Timberwolves by more than what was the final score? We beat them by like 8 or 10 or something
yeah,
like that. I mean, they'd only won 12 games. We should have been
but
up
they have
30.
they have something that a lot of teams that are that bad don't have. They have a superstar that could just take over a game.
Yeah.
And Cat is he's legit. He's one of the
Yeah.
great players in this game. So
Yeah.
that's why the game is always not a throwaway when you got players like that. And
Well, and he
I
has his
want
rivalry with Joel too. So
and you can tell Joe put a couple licks on him, like when he got a chance. It's so funny. But I
I
think what
know.
pissed Joe off was when he got dunked on,
Hmm.
and then Cat was animated about it, which I would be too. You got the
Yeah.
guy that always torment you. Finally, I get to dunk on him and make him look bad.
Right.
But then when Joe makes his shot, he's
I know. I know. Oh,
it's so great. So
yeah.
what do you see? Do you think the Sixers get will keep the first place um in the East? What do you think will keep it?
Um, I hope we'll keep it.
That's what
I
everybody's saying.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I don't As a lifelong Philly sports fan, it's hard to get too excited until you're there, right? Like
Yes.
it feels like it's never easy. And so I'm happy Joel isn't playing today. I don't care if he plays every other game for the rest of the regular season, and like at the end of the day, if we're in first, that would be great, home court advantage. But as long as we win the Eastern Conference championship, I'll be very happy. And I think we should be in that game, their series. I don't there's no question we should be in that series. I'm reluctant to say that I think we'll finish first because we're just so neck and neck with the Nets right now.
hmm
So it's really hard to say, but I hope so.
Yeah. Forget the Nets. I don't care about
Yeah,
them.
who cares?
Like whatever. But let's get to your love. You of course the pandemic, the whole thing now is what can I binge watch? What can I watch? You
Yeah.
love shows. What is your
Mhm.
favorite show to watch right now?
Um, I have gone through so many different phases in the pandemic of shows.
hmm
I have watched Schitt's Creek, I think twice all the way through. It's but that's a good background show because it's
It's
light.
phenomenal. Me and my
Yeah.
wife love it. Love it. Love
Yeah.
it. Love it.
It's so funny. I love paranormal shows. So
hmm
like Paranormal Caught on Camera or like The Dead
Oh,
Files.
not those.
I
So you're
love it.
like the people that's in the dark and they're waiting for.
I
Oh, I think I heard something.
I don't believe it, but I love it for some
I
reason.
wonder why you watch it if you don't believe it.
Because it's just like easy, like I don't know. I spend so much time. I'm teaching remotely and have been teaching remotely all year, and so it's like I spend so much time thinking about biology
I
that
think I
like
know what you're about to say. Go
I
ahead.
just want to not think about
My
anything
wife
serious.
says the same thing. She's
Yeah,
a
your wife
licensed
and I get
therapist
along. I can
and
tell
she's a
already.
social worker. So
Yeah.
she
Oh, that's
said she
awesome.
likes to look at, she call it mindless dumb
Yes.
stuff because
Yes.
she's always thinking. So she wants to just run down Facebook and see people like jumping onto a bed attack. So I'm making it up, but somebody like
Yeah.
making eggs in a waffle
Mhm.
maker, and she said I just like people doing stupid things, and then I
Yeah.
don't have to think about it. Now me, I love crime shows,
Oh, I
so
love
I'm
crime shows
I'm
too.
always thinking and analytical, and I'm like, she's like, honey, you did this, you retired,
Oh, that's true. I didn't think about that. That's like your
and yet you
career.
still want to watch. But you know what? I told her the reason why I love watching them It's because I love to watch. I love to find out the psyche of why people do things the way that they do.
Yeah.
Also, how stupid people can be. And three, I love when people get what's coming to them. So I love the sentencing part because I'm like, okay, what are you giving them? What are you giving them?
Yeah.
We're gonna give them 4 consecutive life sentence in 2 years for the gun charge. I'm like, oh man, 2 years? That's it? And she's like, he has 4 consecutive life terms. Like, what else do you want? I'm like, I'm very heavy handed when it comes to the discipline part. So that's why I love crime shows. But it's so funny
Yeah.
when you got you and my wife when you're in such a field where you have to think all the time, analyze. When you want to unwind, you just want to look at something that's dumb.
Yeah. Well, your wife is a social worker. She has a lot more of a challenging career than I do because I have so much respect for social workers that putting
Hmm.
because I'm a foster youth mentor and I'm actually just newly licensed to foster to adopt. So
Oh
uh,
wow.
yeah, so I've been foster workers have been or social workers have been a huge part of my life over the last year, but just the ins and outs of that. I mean, your wife is a saint for that line of work because you
Well,
just
thank you.
see so I really mean that. But yeah, I like to just get away from it. Although I do like a crime show, but that's totally
I love
unrelated to what
crime
I
shows.
do. So
I love crime shows. I love them.
yeah,
So let's go back to binge watch. You said you watched Schitt's Creek twice all the way
yeah.
through.
I'm
Who's your
really
favorite
oh,
character?
who's my favorite character? Moira, probably.
What? Mine's between David and Roland. Why do you like
Oh,
Moira so much?
Poland's great. Because Moira is just so over the top and wild and but like unabashedly herself all the
Hmm.
time. And I love that. I love people that are just themselves, no matter where they are. I mean, she's like in this rinky dink little town wearing this like haute couture like outfit and it's just great. But I love Roland for the same reason because he's hilarious. I mean, you can't not love Chris Elliott. He's so goofy and funny.
He's so great. Like he makes
Yeah.
like he's instant comedy.
Yes.
He's like a great background singer or a great feature. Like you put
Yeah.
him in anything, he's money.
Yeah.
He's
Right.
so good. But would you talk about more? What is that accent? Where I don't understand.
I actually saw an interview about with Catherine O'Hara about that accent, and she said like because the character is like this amalgam of just different like socialite type ladies, and
Hmm.
I think she kind of just did that with different accents too.
She's like, oh, the great ensemble, and I'm like, what? Where are you from,
I know
John?
it's so silly.
Why would
That's
you do
I think
that, David?
David, no. I feel
Now,
like
who?
the reason why everybody
Go
likes
ahead.
Schitt's Creek so much, though, especially during the pandemic, is it's like such a feel good show. There's not like any
Oh,
real drama or like negativity. It's like very positive. So it's like nice and light to watch.
and I love the way it's humble because we've all thought
Yeah.
about like what happens to these people. Like you hear about these rich people, they be like they're bankrupt. I'm like, wait a minute, they just was on Forbes last
Right.
year.
Right.
So what is bankrupt? What is poor to the rich? And I feel like even though it's a comedy and it's fictional, it still gives an accurate account of how, like, for instance, like Johnny, he's still wearing his expensive suits
Right.
at Schitt's Creek.
Right.
He's cleaning leaves out the gutters, and he
Right.
has on his expensive suit. Myra's
Yeah.
wearing $5,000 wigs, and they're
Right.
hung up on the wall. It's so phenomenal. It's so
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
agree.
I feel like it's current enough to where it's still giving us a insight into what's going on around us, especially
Yeah.
when you got the rich. Like I love the fact that a couple episodes he has mentioned that all these famous people where he talk about how we had this person over when they hit Schitt's Creek, where was those people?
Right. Yeah. Not there.
Anybody to help him out? Nobody.
No.
And I
Yeah.
love how he always mentions he was number 2 to Blockbuster.
I know.
And both are gone now.
I know. I know.
Rose Video and Blockbuster are both bankrupt. So
I keep meaning to watch that Netflix show, or is it a movie? I probably on about the last Blockbuster. Have you
yes,
seen
it's a
that?
documentary. I
Oh
have
yeah.
not, but it's on my list.
Yeah, it's on my
You know,
list too.
I just was talking. I was on another show. Um, I was on the Bradham and Emery show, and they had a guy named Twitty on, and we was talking about he brought up the last Blockbuster, and I have 2 videos from Blockbuster that I didn't return. I have it's in my collection. I have
Oh
one
my
right here.
gosh.
I still have.
Oh my gosh. The late fees are astronomical on
Yeah,
that.
I'm not going to turn it back in. But
There,
then
you
I
know what?
realized.
They
Go
could come
ahead.
back in business with the late fees from that.
And then I opened it and look.
Oh, you're missing the DVD.
I'm missing the DVD. So it's this one, and I forgot the other video I had, but the other video for sure I know has a DVD in it. So Blockbuster,
Sorry.
let's talk.
Just call.
Oh man, this has been so fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much on an Easter Sunday. Taking time out of your busy schedule with the tortoises and the turtles
Not
and swimming and San
nah,
Diego weather and
it is pretty nice out
I
today.
know don't rub it in.
I
Don't
know.
rub it in. So I do want to get into um tell me how does it feel to be a professor? How does it feel?
Um, you know, I don't I don't know how to answer that. Um, good, I guess. I mean, the bottom line, I love what I do. And so it's like I truly I was asked this question recently. I don't know if it was by a student, I can't remember, but of if I wasn't doing what I'm doing, what would I be doing? I'm always like, I don't know, because this is kind of what I always saw myself doing. I love working with the students. It is my favorite part of my job. And I love teaching at a community college because I can relate to my students in, not having being first generation in your family to go to college, to go to a 4-year school. And they come from such different backgrounds. Like each and every one of them has such a unique story. And they're all there because they want to learn. People always, especially growing up in the Philadelphia suburbs, I have to say, people were very negative, like kids, I mean, about like community colleges. And then when I moved to California, the California community college system is awesome. And it's like they have very easy tracks for the kids to transfer in and stuff. But it's just so great. And I love it so much. The mentoring part of my job is by far my favorite.
And we're going to get into the whole community college thing because you just
Mm.
bought on something. Because I am a product of community
Yes.
colleges. I went to more than 2 community colleges in my career. On my way to my I got a bachelor's. I got my bachelor's, and then I got my master's just last year. So
Congrats.
thank you so much.
Awesome.
But I've been going to school since 2000.
Well, that's how
And
I
if it
feel too.
and if it wasn't for community colleges, I wouldn't have these 2 degrees on my wall because
Yeah.
whenever I felt like, okay, I'm not quite there yet to go to a 4-year, I could just sign up for community college, do the work, at least stay in that mode. And it
Mm-hmm.
was always great professors that will always ask me, what are you doing here? And I would tell them, they would be like, you can do more. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
love that you're doing this, but I see that you could do more. And that's one of the things that I love about community colleges is because it's a great conduit and you have people there that care. That people, they can
Mm-hmm.
be teaching at your fancy schools, but they love being there in the beginning of somebody's career and watching them grow.
Yeah.
Um so that whole stigma about community colleges, to me, it really, it pisses me off, because
Yeah.
my thing is learning, school is school. The only difference is, one, you're gonna get a enormous bill afterwards. That's the only difference. Like
Right.
it's so, I mean, how do you, I mean, you spoke about that, but do you sometimes get that stigma to where, like, even when you're among colleagues or whatever, and they're like, "Hey, where do you teach?" You're like, "Hey, I teach at San Diego
Mhm.
Community College," and do you get that? Huh?
Yeah, I mean, not, I will say not as much if I'm in California,
Mm-hmm.
because I think, I have a lot of friends and colleagues that are professors at four-year schools, and they recognize that, and even myself, I was an adjunct at a four-year university here for a little while, and it's like the students know too that a lot of us teach at both. They like go back and forth. And but I will say outside of the state, sometimes I get that because community colleges don't have the same support in other states that we do in California. And it's a shame. I mean, I actually think Florida has a pretty good community college system too. I don't know as much about where Pennsylvania is with it now, but when I was a kid, it was just, there was such a stigma. But yeah, it still happens and it's hurtful. And I had a student that actually pretty recently, probably within the last year, it was a former student that was transferring to a local four-year university and was at an orientation, and there was some professor there that made a jab at like, oh well, you're not in community college anymore. And then the student told me about it, and I was like, I can't believe that they would say that, because who are they to judge your path
Right.
to get to school? And also, as a professor at a community college, I have continuously been more impressed by my community college students than the four-year university students, because my students are sometimes crossing the border from Mexico to come to class. They are older adults that have children and families, and they're working full time. They're not just kids that, like, mom and dad are paying the bill and they can party when they're not in class. So it's twisted, and it's not right.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like, I'm so invested in my students, and I just would do anything to help them fight that stigma, because it shouldn't be there. It's so ridiculous that it even would be there.
It's ridiculous, and what I think is going to take, it's going to take for the 4-year colleges to reach out, because I like that some of the community colleges that I went to, they had a direct conduit to
Yeah.
a 4-year. They'll be like, "Hey, we have a, I'm just making up, we have a program with Twitter University that you take these classes and they directly correlate here,
Yeah.
and you could get in after your 2 years, after your associates or whatever, blah blah blah." So I just find it phenomenal. Like I said, I've been going to school since 2000, and community college has been there. I went to Mercer County Community College. I went to Fayetteville
Nice.
Tech Community College. I went to what's the one here that I went to? Why am I drawing a blank? I went to two colleges here in two community colleges here in Charlotte, and then ultimately I got my 4-year degree and my master's at Pfeiffer. So you gotta, when it comes to schooling, I get it, the whole prestige and the yelling when your team gets the Final Four and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, when you're sitting somewhere and somebody's asking you something about your craft, or want to know what it is that you're willing to do, they you're gonna have to get past, "I went to Duke," and then they'll be like, "Okay,
Yeah.
so what's next?"
You know what I do? In many ways, not that I was grateful that it happened, but I think like everybody, it made me so angry when that whole college admissions scandal happened.
Yes,
But what I do think it did was help to bring those schools down a notch, because
yes,
it made it widely known that a lot of kids that go to those schools are going because their parents made endowments or basically cheated the system to get them in. And so, if you're a terrible person and you have a job that is very selfish and self-centered and doesn't give back in some way, but you went to USC or you went to, I'm only picking on like Stanford, those were two involved, right? And then, but what is that? Who cares? That means nothing. And versus somebody who went to community college and then transferred and now has a career and they earned that, and that's so different. And like you were saying, in California, that's why I love our system so much, because we do have these relationships with the 4-year schools. So in San Diego, we have in San Diego Community College District, which is what I'm a part of, we have 3 campuses and then a continuing ed school. And we have relationships with San Diego State and UC San Diego. And it makes it so easy for our students to transfer because of that. So you take this class here, it's the same as what you would take there. And that relationship, you're spot on. That relationship bolsters the community colleges in the community and makes it viable. And you save so much money by going that route.
So much money. I don't want to become a career student because I don't want to start
Right.
paying my school loans.
I tell my
Like,
students all the time, if I grew up in California, there is no doubt in my mind that my mom would have had us in community for 2 years and then transfer. There's no doubt that would have been our route. So
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, this has been fantastic. Like
thank
I
you for
said,
having
thank
me.
you. Oh, thank you for coming on. Like I said,
This was
you
really
know
fun
it's very fun, and we have to do this again
when we get
because
closer to playoffs.
yes, because I feel so bad because you of course know I was suspended from Twitter.
I
So
know.
when I go live, it's not going to feed it to my Twitter because I can't do anything. And I wanted so many more eyes on this, but of course they'll download it and listen to it later. But I to that person that reported me, you scum. Like like that's it.
What was the tweet that you got
I
reported
told
for?
him I got it right here. I got it right here because I want people to know this is what Twitter's come down to now.
I know.
All I said was the guy. Let me give you the background. I was talking to Denver, Denver reporter, insider, whatever, Benjamin Albright,
Okay.
and apparently this guy jumped in and was like trying to be Captain Save him to Denver Ben, and all I said was, "Stalk another D-list insider, and I don't need your good lucks, you freak. You the one on here crying about a grown man that wears uneven shirts. Shout out to David. Go eat a crayon." That's all I said. And
Oh
then
my
I woke up
gosh.
and tried to post something, and Twitter was like, "You may not promote violence or threaten or harass other people on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, sexual orientation, gender
What?
identity, religious affiliation, age, disability, or serious disease." Who did I? What?
There must be some like crayon eating religion that you don't know of.
I'm like, what? Or people who wear uneven shirts. Maybe the freak thing got them. Like,
You know what? That's such baloney because like we had that clown for the last 4 years in the White House tweeting whatever the hell he wanted to and didn't
mm-hmm.
get suspended until the very end. And it's like you got suspended for that.
I've been called so many things, and it takes Twitter forever. It's some disgusting, vile things on Twitter that it takes them
Yeah.
forever to remove. I told a guy to go eat a crayon, and I got 7 days. So in 2 more days, I'll be back. And to you, I hope you have a good time. But I will admit, the thing that makes me mad is when my voice on there is silenced because
Yeah.
I got to talk to you. We talked about some very important things.
Yeah.
People are not going to hear that or get a chance to see that live. And also, there's been a lot of stuff people been saying that I'm like,
You can't respond.
and I can't. So what I did was I bookmarked the tweets because I'm coming. When I come back, I'm like, yeah, I know you said this 7 days ago, but you dummy, blah 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 blah. They're gonna be like, I don't remember saying that, but oh my god. So
Everybody get ready. If
yeah,
you
when
tweeted something.
oh man, because they're used to it now. Because they're like, where's Blue? Oh god, what do he do now? Oh, so when I come back, it's gonna be
Yeah.
it's gonna be so vengeful. But thank you so much, Dr.
Yes,
Marak. I
thank you.
appreciate this so much. Thank you so much. And tell everybody where they can see you or something that you're working on, something that you want somebody to pay attention to, passionate about, organization or anything. The
Um,
floor is yours.
I will say this, if you have a way to get involved with foster youth in your community, please do it, even if it's just being a mentor or in a lot of areas, you can be a court appointed special advocate, which is a CASA, and you can help these kids that are there through no fault of their own. And if that's something that you can do to give back to your community, it makes your community stronger because you're giving these kids a leg up and the one adult maybe in their life that's there to support them. So I'll say that.
And that is and I'm gonna piggyback on that. That is so important because what we also have with everything with as positive and as great as you are and what you're trying to do, we have some awful, dangerous, bad mentees out there. Some people that's in it for the wrong reasons, and we need to make the pool stronger again. So these kids, when they get to the only person that they can absolutely trust the first time in their lives, it's not a scumbag or it's
Yeah.
not somebody that's doing harmful things to them physically and
Yeah.
emotionally. So thank you for bringing that up. And yes, please, if you can do whatever it is you can, uh,
It's
in the
so rewarding. I've been a
it
mentor
is.
to the same kid for the last 5 years. I'm like, we have such a great relationship, and she's 11 now. We were at the beach the other day. Like, she's like my niece at this point, and like,
And that's fantastic.
yeah.
Love it, because we all know what happens to these kids when they get with the wrong people.
And we need more
So
good men to do it too, because there's not enough men mentors in these systems to help these kids. So
and that's a whole story within itself. But yes, man,
yeah,
if you can do it, I know there's a huge stigma out there where, why would men want to be hanging around with younger people, blah blah blah. But I'm
they
telling you, if
need
you're
role
in it,
models.
if you're in it for the right reason and doing the right thing, it will show.
Yeah.
So please get involved. Thank you so much, Dr.
Yeah.
Matrack, and
Thank you, Prince
we will
Blue.
do this again, and I can't wait. Please, people, remember I'm at Real Prince Blue on Twitter, at Real Prince Blue on Instagram. Make sure you download the podcast. Just ask Siri, ask Alexa, hey, play Real Time with Prince Blue. Make sure you download this episode when it comes out. She is Dr. Matrack. You can catch her at Doc
Yeah, I think
Matrack.
it's at Doc Madrack on Twitter. And then I think it's the same on Instagram. I don't
Hey,
actually know.
listen, it's all to just say Big Turtle Lady,
Yeah.
and then her picture will pop
Yeah,
up.
that's right. That's
So
right.
thank you, everybody. Go Sixers, go
Yes.
Phillies,
Yeah.
Eagles.
Less than two
Blah.
hours to game time.
Yes, I can't wait. Get them, Memphis.
Yeah.
Get on them. Thank you so much, everybody. Remember, have a happy Easter. I was gonna say Thanksgiving. Have a happy Easter. Be safe and be well. And I will see you again later. Bye, everybody.